Hello, and Court Vision is back in session. Hello, everyone. We're at it again. It's our final episode before the season begins, which means it's time for the Superlatives episode. Everyone's favorite. Ask Mongo. Look at that face. That's just a grin from ear to ear. So, as we have been doing for the past few years for the other channel we are no longer with, we do our NBA Superlatives. We're doing Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, first coach fired, our teams that we have going to the finals, our team that's winning the finals, and our MVP for the finals. Let's kick this thing off in style with first coach fired.
Yeah, let's go.
Best way to start. The best way to start.
So, spoilers, Tommy predicted this in our pre-show. I have Billy Donovan as the first coach being fired. And honestly, here, even though Mongo says that he seems to be immune to being fired, my reasoning is this. The Bulls desperately need to show that they have some sort of improvement this year. And if this team just flat out is just failing miserably before the midway point of the season, I could see them firing him in hopes to get some sort of spark. They have Lonzo Ball coming back. They lost DeMar DeRozan, but Zach LaVine's should be back in favor. And this team still has players, and they're desperate to try to be relevant. So this is their chance at trying to do something. If it fails before the halfway point in the season, I expect him to be fired. Let's go to Tommy for his first coach fired.
I mean, you said it yourself. It's Billy Donovan. It's got to be Billy Donovan. I mean, what else is there to say that you already didn't say?
That's fair. All right, over to Mongo.
Here's my only concern with it being Billy Donovan, because he literally is the definition of low-hanging fruit. 30 coaches are going to get odds for Coach of the Year. He's tied in a three-way tie for 28th, meaning he's tied for last with the Nets and Wizards first-year coach. I mean, he literally is being treated like a nobody. I would have to assume, because Vegas doesn't believe he's going to be somebody when it comes to being a coach by the end of the year. The only thing I'm concerned about is, why wouldn't you just do it already, right? If you believe, like a lot of us, Chicago is just a lost cause and they need to start really trying to figure out a way to boost Patrick Williams' ego. They need to let Buzelis play a lot this year and see what they, have in that sort of unknown first-round pick. Some of the other young guys, why let Billy – I get that he was a college guy, but he clearly hasn't been able to figure out what to do with youth that, they haven't really had high picks and they haven't really done anything, right? Dalen Terry kind of got lost. Sumo has had and lost his moments. So the fact that he's still there worries me that he's going to stay there longer. I actually switch over to the other side here. DraftKings has 6 teams between 6 and 11 in the West, all separated by 4 games. So to me, I'm going to cheat here and say whoever that 11th team in the West has really has the best chance. But I'll take it one step further. I'll give you a name. I'm not going to be that cheap about it. When you look at those 6 teams, to me, Steve Kerr is absolutely untouchable. Golden State's in that mix. So let's just go ahead and take him out. To me, if Taylor Jenkins with Memphis or if Willie Green with New Orleans is the odd team out, to me, that's probably going to be because of injuries, right? That's not really going to be the coach's fault, and I'd have to excuse them. It would be really hard for the Lakers to move on from J.J. Redick that fast. They're too proud of a franchise. It was too risky of a pick. That would be the ultimate admitting of defeat. I could see the Lakers holding on to him for a while. Now you're left with Sacramento and Houston in that mix. Houston, to me, Udoka's only been there 1 year. He's only been there 1 year. And that team seems to be content to go slow, right? We talked about it in the Southwest pre-show. They really didn't do anything this offseason. They just re-signed Jalen Green, so they're clearly building internally. You wouldn't move on from a coach when you expect it to be a slow process. So basically, by default, we're left with Mike Brown as my answer here. Sacramento Kings. They just went out. They got DeRozan. They have high expectations. This is only his 3rd year, but there's been so much coach turnover. That puts him right around like 15th longest tenured coach. He's middle of the road when it comes to that. I think he's actually 14th, but he's somewhere right in that range. relative to the other 29 coaches, he's old. And if Sacramento is hanging out even near 11th, they're hanging out near the bottom of that group, you could see a world where they have to blame somebody. Mike Brown, not a journeyman per se, but certainly has been fired before. It's not like shocking news to fire Mike Brown. So I'm going to go with Mike Brown from the Kings.
All right, I can see that. That makes sense. He was definitely someone I was thinking about, but I have expectations for the Sacramento Kings team that is exceeds. I don't think that they're going to be in that position, but that's just my opinion. Let's get Kevin's opinion. Who do you have as your first coach fired?
New Orleans Pelicans head coach Willie Green. The reason I have Willie Green being fired is because I took a quick look at how they did in the play-in tournament. They've reached the play-in 2 consecutive times, but did not make it past the play-in stage. I have them going into the play-in a 3rd consecutive time, but losing. That's a good enough cause to get a coach fired in some circles, and I'm going to make my guess solely based on that.
Now, Kevin, that would suggest, because I think I'm with you here, but I just want to confirm that your suggestion there is that no coach is getting fired during the regular season, right? Because this is first coach fired.
Yes, I do not have a coach being fired mid-season like Robert Saleh.
Nice, thanks. To clarify, if that was an option, I played the game of who I thought would be first in a world where one coach at least was fired. But I with so many new coaches out there and with so much chalk, proverbial chalk happening this offseason where a lot of things stayed roughly the same. I mean, I don't think there's going to be much movement in the Eastern standings at all, right? So, I mean, it's hard to want to fire a coach over there. You can imagine a world where this year basically just comes and goes and the 7 or 8, perennial fighters basically fight it out at the top. And then to Kevin's point, maybe if someone disappoints in the playoffs, that might trigger a firing. But again, I think the best team that has nothing to show for it at the end of the day will be whoever finished 11th in the West. And so, Kevin, I'm not mad at that pick because if New Orleans ends up 11 in the West, I think Willie Green is gone. I just think if it's because of injuries, they might give him a pass and everyone might be kept.
I think injuries can be overused. I see too many fans and other people alike just claiming injuries, but there are teams who find a way to win past injuries. And I do have the Pelicans making the play-in, so they wouldn't be 11, but I still have them flaming out. And that 3 consecutive play-in trips without a postseason appearance to me is a good enough cause to get fired. And I didn't see any obvious Steve Nash candidate to be fired in like 7 or 8 games. So I figured, why not go with that reasoning if you can't see an obvious one mid-season?
Yeah, I'm so torn on the Pelicans here because they have 3 pretty bad. They have Yves Missi, he looks potentially nice, but he's like 12 years old and he can do nothing but dunk. Carlo Makovic, no one's ever heard of, and Daniel Tace is the ultimate journeyman. They have no center. They've injuries. I'm with you on that, except for the fact that they've chosen to invest in a guy who can't stay healthy, right? Like none of that would be a coach's fault. It's really hard to imagine a world where he'd have to be 100% scapegoat, which in a smaller market like New Orleans is not as likely to believe. Whereas the Clippers, that's totally not on the coach this year. But you could see a world where Los Angeles, because it's Los Angeles, is like someone's head's got to roll, right? The small market or smaller market might help Willie Green.
Coaches have been fired for for situations beyond their control. So do keep that in mind.
I know. I mean, they've been fired for a lot of reasons and then rehired by the Rockets shortly thereafter.
All right, let's move to Coach of the Year. I have our friend Chris Finch winning Coach of the Year.
I almost put him as first coach fired. I almost have to do it.
My reasoning is they're going to give it to him because he probably should have been more in conversation last year than he was, and they like to do those types of things.
Yeah, I'm going to go next because my logic is the same. It just arrives at a different name. I purposely am going to avoid using this word too many times because you can make a drinking game out of it if I wanted to. The word of the day here is narrative, right? These are all voted on things. If a narrative gets created, then watch out. And I'm with you. They look at who's been doing, they look at overall body of work more than they should sometimes with this award. We're at a point right now where only 5 coaches actually predate the pandemic, which is shocking. The pandemic, I know we like to think of it like it's a lifetime ago. It's not. There are only 5 coaches that existed in the 2010s. And so I think we're reaching a point now where those 5 guys, if they can do something special, really, they do deserve to be treated differently at this point. And I think the narrative on the Grizzlies, no one wants to just say Ja Morant is worth 25 wins, right? No one wants to say the guy who was touting a gun in a Denver nightclub is the savior of Memphis, right? So they're going to find somebody to give Memphis's big comeback credit to. And I think Taylor Jenkins is going to basically accident his way into Coach of the Year as long as Memphis gets to even like 41 wins. With that being said, I promised these guys I'd make a couple just better savvy picks. I think a potentially sexy pick here because we're talking narrative, right? Tommy, I don't want to spoil your thunder here. I'm guessing you're going to mention the Spurs a lot in the next couple segments here. Not on this one necessarily, but I do think Popovich is going to get some respect this year as the Spurs make their big jump. And so that's going to kind of put the spotlight on some of these veteran coaches, which is part of why I think Taylor Jenkins is going to finally get appreciated the way he should have been several times in the past 5-6 years. But that's going to also put the spotlight squarely back on Steve Kerr, who's basically coaching 3 teams at this point. His veterans, his Jonathan Kuminga era draft picks, and his pods and his rookie guys, along with some of the free agents he just brought in. If he can get that team to the 43, 44 wins, that they think he can, in what I think is going to be the year of the veteran coach, considering Steve Kerr has the 19th best odds to win Coach of the Year right now, I think that's a real sexy long shot pick. Just throwing it out there. I'm going to go with Jenkins, but if I was betting on this, I'd probably have to throw a little on Kerr. I think it's just a real sexy pick.
That's fair. Let's go to Kevin.
Okay. I'm going to go where no one's gone before and say we're going to have our first repeat Coach of the Year winner in the NBA, Mark Daigneault. Hopefully I said that correctly. If I did that, I apologize. He won Coach of the Year last year, 57 wins. I have the Thunder going to 62 wins. I think he's a strong candidate to win Coach of the Year again. And I think even if he doesn't, even if he potentially loses out on the 1 seed to some team named the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think his work will be shown in the playoffs when they push past the Timberwolves at some point.
I just don't see them going back to back. I just don't see it happening.
It's never happened in NBA history before. I'll admit, I'm really going on a twig here, not just a limb, a twig.
Yeah, you're grasping on that leaf there.
I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Typically, Coach of the Year goes to someone who has like a big turnaround, right? Like not doing the same thing
either
they did
big
the year
turnaround
before.
or they finally give notice to someone who's been successful. Like especially so like part of my reason with the Timberwolves is the fact that the Timberwolves got to the Western Conference. They went to the Western Conference Finals, right? That's who lost to. They lost to Denver, not Denver, Mavericks, Dallas, right?
Yes,
that sure sounds believable.
Anyway, so Tommy, who you got, and why is it not Greg Popovich?
Tell me, guys, do you remember the name of the Orlando Magic coach?
Jamal Mosley.
That's my pick, Jamal Mosley.
Nope. But in fairness, before this episode, I Googled who the net coach was, and I already forget that name. So I'm probably not the guy.
That should have been directly asked to you.
You mean it's not Jacques Vaughn anymore?
No, it's I can't do it with Jody Fernandez, maybe.
Jose Fernandez. It's something Fernandez. You did say it earlier, and it was Fernandez. It was definitely
Jody.
Fernandez.
Jordy.
I'm assuming Kevin's Googling this. Anyway, Tommy,
Jordy.
you keep going. I'll see how
Jordy.
long.
Jordy.
So I went with Jamal Mosley. I think, especially after how the Magic looked last season compared to how they've looked for years, it should at least, yes, a lot of the improvements came when Paolo Banchero was drafted, but obviously he's doing something of merit for that Magic team to not only make the playoffs last year, but at least look like somewhat of a good team. And I think they're only going to get better this year.
You know what's
That's
funny?
right.
I almost picked Jamal Mosley as my coach of the year candidate until I found out that nobody won it twice. I figured, let's go in that direction instead, just for kicks.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost my first coach to be fired.
Yeah, we know.
We know.
He really wasn't. If this was 2 years ago, yeah. All right, let's move on to Rookie of the Year.
My least favorite segment.
Well, let me
I
start
have.
with you.
Yeah, why don't you like? Is it because this draft class is bad, or is it because
No, I just don't like Rookie of the Year segment in general. I hate guessing on rookies.
All right, Mr. Curmudgeon.
That's all right. I'm just expressing my opinion. That's
Weird
all.
hang up, man.
It's
Anyway.
Jordy Fernandez, by the way. Jordy Fernandez
Yeah,
is the
I said
coach
that.
of the Knicks.
Yeah, Kevin said that like 6 times, and I told you it.
Sorry,
You just
Charles
couldn't hear
Lee
it.
coaches the Hornets.
Anyway, so I have my pick is out from the West. Talk about the Lakers franchise. This guy has a lot going for him, and I can't see a reason how he isn't in the conversation. And I really do believe that Dalton Connect will be winning Rookie of the Year.
You had us there in the first half.
That was. I do. I think that this draft class is still not great looking. He's shown promise in so far in the preseason. I think that he'll have a nice role coming off the bench for them, and he'll just be able to build up minutes and points and stats that he'll be in consideration just because this draft class is arguably as bad as the 2000 draft class. So
I don't know. There's some underrated gems in this draft class, though.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I do think he's also is like top 5, I think, in or top 10 in vote in standings for that. So he is my pick. I actually
DraftKings has him 6.
6. Okay. So I do think I genuinely do think he's a good pick. I think that the Lakers and at worst he gets traded because he's doing, or at best he's doing so well, he gets traded. So the Lakers get someone else to help try to get a championship, which would only help him, I think. So let's go to Tommy, who thinks that this draft class is stacked.
I didn't say it was stacked. I just said they were
He just thinks
underrated
Stephon
gems.
Castle is the greatest thing to come out of UConn since Jake Voskuhl.
That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut.
You're a UConn fan too, aren't you?
Yes. In all seriousness, though, because I'm going to be honest. Before the college championship, I had no idea who Stephon Castle was. And after watching him in that college championship and during preseason, he's got a really good shot at this. I think like he's already looking really great. He's just got to I think he's in a great position. Working with Chris Paul. Which is probably an excellent pick on the Spurs. On the Spurs part to bring in Chris Paul right when you've drafted a young point guard.
But that's the thing. That's why I just find it difficult for him to be in conversation for Rookie of the Year, because it's just how much minutes is he going to be able to eat, and how much time is he going to be on the floor where he's going to be with the first team, right? Because it's going to be primarily Chris Paul. Dalton has a chance at getting starter minutes, maybe not necessarily starting, but he'll get spot up starts when Braun is resting. Or Anthony Davis is resting, or both are resting. I guess if Chris Paul gets hurt, he'll get more minutes.
Or if he gets traded mid-season.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, you guys know me. When it comes to Rookie of the Year, I typically lean for maybe not the surefire pick, but like a dark horse guy. And I think this is someone at least worth looking at.
He's someone I was thinking about when I was looking over the list of rookies, but I'm like, but they did get Chris Paul, and that to me was like them getting Chris Paul was my reasoning for not having him as my pick.
And to say, if I could say one thing, I suspect that they're gonna probably, they'll play Chris Paul quite a bit, but I have a feeling there'll be games where Stephon Castle straight up starts, especially with how old Chris Paul is.
And how injured he gets.
Yes.
That's fair.
But yeah, that's all I've had to say.
What about you, Mr. Kevin?
All right. The person I picked for Rookie of the Year is somebody named Bub Carrington on the Washington Wizards. I just took a quick look at the candidates for Rookie of the Year because I couldn't remember who was drafted in this class. I'm not a big person who follows college sports, so I just okay, take a quick look at this list, and then I was like, okay, this team probably won't rely on rookies. This team won't probably rely on rookies, and then I narrowed it down to him and Reed Shepherd, and I just did a coin toss and figured that Bub Carrington would win it, just for kicks.
Okay.
Kevin, I'm with you, buddy. I got Bub Carrington winning this thing. Actually, he's gonna get a ton of minutes on Washington. He's a point guard, so he can really control his own stats in that sense. When it's really a stat grabbing category, Malcolm Brogdon's there, who is good to miss a boatload of time at some point or inevitably get traded. So that'll only give him more time as the year goes on, and he's more involved in the rotation. He's so just proof if proof were needed that we all know nothing. Kilroy and Tommy, your guys have equal odds according to DraftKings, by the way. Connect and Castle, both with the exact same odds, both in the top 10, tied at 6 for Rookie of the Year odds. Bub Carrington, who to me actually has a clearer path than both those guys, although Connect is obviously on the better team, is nowhere to be found on the odds. So he's got better money on him. He's got the clearer path. And then the just again, while we're throwing out some long shots here, another guy who to me, and Tommy, you know this because we're going back to Stephon Castle's stomping grounds here, a guy who's getting no love in the Rookie of the Year conversation, but I think it's worth discussing, is Donovan Clingan. I mean, he ends up falling to Portland despite being in the conversation for number 1. It's a team that really doesn't have, Walker's their backup 4, but not really going to, light the world on fire. They're trying to move Robert Williams. DeAndre Ayton's health is always in question there. Jeremy Grant, not really a true big 4. He could play the 3 if you really wanted to, mess around with that lineup. He also is a threat to get traded. So I think there's plenty of playing time, and he's looked like an absolute monster on the boards in the preseason as well. I know the preseason doesn't mean a whole lot, but he's definitely, he's a little older, ready to come in, right away. He has the championship pedigree. He's looked good, and for a guy who doesn't seem to be getting a whole lot of respect, Vegas wise, I think he's worth keeping an eye on if you're looking to kind of splash the pot on a really wide open field.
So Kornheiser and Wilbon have a chance to see an exciting player in their working city. Interesting.
Yeah, I love Bub Carrington, by the way. Rookie of the Year odds be damned. I just think long-term health, my favorite rookie in this draft by far.
I think part of the reason he's so low is because he's currently listed third on as the point guard behind Poole and Brogdon, and listed as fourth on the shooting guards behind the last year's rookie Corey Crispet, Malcolm Brogdon, and then himself.
Maybe that's okay. He'll have plenty of chances to do something.
No, I'm not saying that he doesn't have
let's start by doing some math and saying why depth charts are absolute horse hockey. He doesn't have to pass Malcolm Brogdon twice. Last time I checked, Malcolm Brogdon is one human who you just tried to block Bub Carrington with.
I said for 2 different positions. I said point guard.
That's not how that works. He's not the 7th guard on the team, right? He's either behind him for the 1 or behind him. I get that you're reading, but it's also absolute horse hockey literature.
I'm not saying that he doesn't have a shot at it.
Right now, Malcolm Brogdon is not going to be on the team in February. Corey Kispert is the one trickiest pony we got in DC. I'm not worried about who's there. Jordan Poole will get punched out by Draymond Green any minute now, and I think Bub Carrington's got a real good path.
I'm not saying that he doesn't have I'm saying the reason that he may not be in the odds is all I was saying.
I think they just hate guys named Bub. I think they're Bubbitist. That's right.
Sometimes odd makers get things very wrong.
Anyway, on to 6th man. Forget this. We're done. On to 6th man of the year because this episode's going on too long.
I'll keep this one real quick. Chris Finch, 6th man of the year.
There you go. I originally put Nasri, but I'm switching to Malik Monk. Tommy.
Dante DiVincenzo.
Kevin.
DDV.
What?
DDV, Dante DiVincenzo.
Oh, you're also going with Dante. Okay. And Mongo? You're going
Yes.
Chris Finch is who you said.
Yeah, screw it. I'll be the one to actually break this one down because I think you'll like this one here. So the last 5 years. So quick rewind: Malik Monk and Naz Reid, right, side by side last year for Sixth Man of the Year. Naz Reid ends up taking it, but it's close. The last 5 years, the Sixth Man of the Year, and traditionally the Sixth Man of the Year goes to a winning team. In the last 5 years, it's gone to a top 3 team in the conference. Obviously, I don't have Malik Monk finishing, I don't have the Kings finishing the top 3 in a world where I have Mike Brown being the first coach fired. You look at the other guys here, Karis LeVert, I don't see Cleveland doing that. Jordan Clarkson, I definitely don't see, Utah being in the top 3. CJ McCollum, no, I don't see his team being in the top 3. You keep going down the list here, and you eventually get down to about 9th or 10th to the second guy. We'll talk about the first in a minute, but I'm going to go with Russell Westbrook here, guys. I think Denver can easily finish in the top 3. I think he's going to get runs with the starters when they're on more the offensive. Just they like Braun enough that he'll be doing the starting. But Russell Westbrook is basically a starter in disguise. That's how Lou Williams won this thing so many times, right? Because he basically wasn't not one of the 5 best players on the team. He just came off the bench. I think Denver has a real shot to finish in the top 3 in the West. That's been the magic number lately. I'm going to go with Russell Westbrook here, but I do need to mention 4th in the odds here, a guy who also meets that description is Josh Hart. However, Josh Hart is going to start a ton of games for the Knicks with Mitchell Robinson out. And then even once Mitch comes back, Josh is easily next man up when anyone's injured. The only time he might not even be in the starting lineup are days when Brunson is injured. But even when Brunson's injured, you might see Campaign get those starts. I think Deuce McBride is a real candidate for Sixth Man of the Year, guys. I got to say it. Who else with Payne and with Kolek on that bench? McBride's going to be a 2 off the bench this year, so the offense is going to be way up. So he's going to have the counting stats they look for. There's nobody else on that bench when any one guy is injured who can take that 6th man title away from him. I really like Deuce McBride as a really dark horse, sexy 6th Man of the Year candidate here.
Both of those.
I actually tried to stay away from Knicks in the 6th Man of the Year discussion because I just don't think that any one of them will put it up for that consistently over the entire season to be 6th man. There's just too much competition within their own team. I think they're gonna beat each other out, and I didn't think you were gonna get a consistent 6th man from the Knicks bench. That's the reason why I stayed away from Knicks. I mean,
let's do it this way. Well, Mitchell Robinson is injured. Name the 7th best Knick. The fact that you can't immediately do that tells you the leash McBride has on being the 6th man on that team.
The rookie point guard the Knicks got?
Yeah. Deuce McBride is the 6th man on this team until further notice. And you guys took DiVincenzo. He might not even be the 6th man on that team with Naz Reid on it, right?
That's why I
defense, my
Naz Reid out is I forgot Dante DiVincenzo was traded there. I think Malik Monk has a very good chance. I think that the Kings are going to be a winning team. I think that they're going to be contending for that division title, so that will help give him what he needs, the platform he needs to be seen, to get recognized for that vote.
Hopefully,
I do like your pick for Russell. I didn't think about it, but when you were saying it, I was like, oh yeah, that all makes sense to me. I like that a lot.
Hopefully, Dante DiVincenzo doesn't have that 9-second exclusion from preventing him from being 6th man again, like last year.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, everyone has to get there, right? Hoping everyone stays healthy and gets their minutes.
Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. I had last year, Victor Wembanyama.
I also have Victor Wembanyama, and I'm just going to say that one for the next 10 years. Give me Wemby every year until 2034. Next.
Tommy has Victor Wembanyama. We don't even have to ask him. And what about Kevin? Who did you pick?
Kevin's making it a clean sweep. I also mentioned Victor Wembanyama as my Defensive Player of the Year. So that means that there's a chance that we're all wrong and it'll be someone else. But I'm not
even giving you a dark horse here. Next one. That one's
all right.
Check. Next one.
Let's go to MVP. I think this is where we're going to have the biggest differences between everyone. I'm going to start off with my my choice that I pick every year, and eventually I'll be right. Luka Doncic. At some point, he's got to win it, right? The guy's too good not to.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback because I'm stealing your answer here. I'm on Team Luca. I think the NBA, which has traditionally been a superstars league, is desperate to get that narrative back that superstars win titles. It makes for a more interesting free agency. It makes for a more interesting dialogue in general. Doncic is clearly starting to sniff the championship. He got to the finals last year. They're going to want him to be a true great if he does start winning championships, excuse me. So I think the narrative around Doncic kind of requires him to have an MVP at some point if he's going to start winning championships. Again, is that necessarily fair? No, but in a world where it's being subjectively voted on, it doesn't have to be fair. So I'm gonna agree with you on Doncic here. It's not really a long shot pick, but I do just want to say if I'm kind of splashing my chips here a little bit, Giannis is fourth this year in the odds. He's been my pick a bunch of times. And I just think that in a year where you can see where, Phillies could be ravaged by injuries, Boston could have the hangover, the Knicks could have cohesion issues. You could see a world where if Milwaukee just kind of does its thing, just kind of leave us alone. We're over here. We're making our usual 55, 60 win run. You could see a world where the media kind of goes, man, how does Antetokounmpo manage to do this? How is he so like Tim Duncan, right, Tommy? Tim Duncan you'd watch the game and be like, oh, he's pretty good. And then they'd be like, and that's 30 points and 20 boards for Tim Duncan. And you'd be like, what? Was he even on the court that whole time? What just happened? Giannis is starting to reach that level of stealthy that the media seems to adore and that fans adore because, it's that sort of heel versus babyface thing that makes wrestling so intriguing, right? In a world where we're starting to get so many heels and so many, sort of dramatic storylines in the East, the sort of the workman could make a run at it too. I'm going to stick with Doncic, but I'd say keep an eye on Giannis as well.
All right, Kevin, who do you got?
I'm staying at Madison Square Garden and going with Jalen Brunson. I think his competition for MVP just got traded away, and I don't think Karl Anthony Towns will push him that hard for the MVP. So I'm going with Jalen Brunson. I think he's going to play really well this year.
Are you implying that you're implying that Julius Randle deserves?
He's
MVP?
not.
No,
He
I'm
said
not
it
saying
wrong.
that
He's
Julius
implying
Randle
that
deserved
would eat his
MVP.
stats.
It sure
But
sounded like that.
The statistics that he'll grab will be more likely to go to Jalen Brunson than anyone else.
I don't believe it. I believe you're saying
get out of here, Kilroy. I know what you're saying, Kevin. I'm going to talk right over
Julius
him. I'm
Randle
not letting this soundbite fly. I will block everything.
All right.
Yeah, I believe Jalen Brunson's going to play even better this year, and his only possible competition just got traded away. So, and I don't think Karl Anthony Towns. I think Karl Anthony Towns will make the Knicks better, but I don't think for MVP discussion purposes that he's going to take away as many votes from Jalen Brunson that Julius Randle might have due to he's not going to grab as many stats as Randle might have.
I'm not going to lie. I was trying to give Kilroy a hard time, but the way you said that the second time was actually worse. I'm now Team Kilroy in this conversation.
Yeah, Kevin, you didn't make it make sense at all. Basically, what Kevin is explaining is that Randle will steal stats from Brunson if he was still on the Knicks. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, I still think that his honestly, my reasoning for not picking Brunson was the fact that they got Bridges and they got Karl Anthony Towns, and that those are just going to steal stats from Brunson. Yeah, his assists are probably going to go up, but his points per game are most likely going to start to dwindle just because this team is just built for more sharing of the basket. But that's neither here nor there. Tommy, who you got, and why is it Tim Duncan?
Well, where do I start? No, I'm kidding. I actually so this is the first of a few of some love I'm going to give the Thunder for the rest of the episode, and I'm going to go with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for MVP. Just that's a good pick. To kind of stray away from the Luka Doncic talk, because I actually could see that too. But
go ahead. SGA is definitely a very good pick there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I like that. I like that choice. Ahead. He's definitely in my top 3 for MVP.
I think he should have won it last year.
I think there was a very good conversation that he should have won it last year. I'm sorry. Go on. Tell us more about your reasoning.
That's kind of what my reasoning was. I think he's going to play at the same level as he did last year, if not a little harder, because I think the Thunder are really itching to make that championship run. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder really want to have a banner of their own to hang up in that arena before Seattle gets their new team and gets their old championships back.
That's fair.
There's
That's
that
fair.
idea.
All
But,
right. Let's move on to the finals before we wrap everything up. My finals predictions: the Dallas Mavericks versus the New York Knicks.
Ooh,
I like that.
And
would've been
I,
a
of
waste.
course,
Sorry, I was
of
just gonna say
course-
that would have been way more fun when Dallas still was like 80% New York Knicks, but it's still fun.
yeah. And I have the New York Knicks coming out on top because obviously I have the New York Knicks coming out on top with Jalen Brunson winning the Finals MVP. Tommy?
I went with so I wrote one thing down, but I've changed it since then. I'm going with from the East, the Boston Celtics, and from the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I have the Thunder winning 4-2, and that
You
SGA
you
is
have
their Finals
dreams down
MVP.
and everything.
What's
Who's
that?
your Who's your Finals MVP?
SGA.
Oh, so you're saying he's winning MVP and Finals MVP in the same year?
Yes.
Ooh, that's impressive. That's impressive. If I had the Thunder in the finals, which I don't, but if I did and I had them winning, I would actually I would take Lou Dort as my Finals MVP.
You know what? Go for it.
Sounds
Manga?
similar to the Andre Iguodala winning Finals MVP several years ago.
Exactly. Actually, let's go to Kevin. We'll end with Mongo.
Okay.
Oh, okay, fine. I have the Oklahoma City Thunder hosting the New York Knicks in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. I have the Knicks winning Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but I actually went on an even thinner leaf and have SGA as the Finals MVP. I think he's going to go off for like 40 points per game in the series.
Wow.
That's very interesting. So we got two. So Kevin, by the way, picked the Thunder last year to make the finals, and I believe also to win it. And so did John, our baseball correspondent. So I'm not totally surprised that Kevin does have the Thunder in his finals.
So we'll have to find something else to talk about after this because I'm gonna end the show on a sour note for all of you. Listen, we all know the NBA is fixed. Come on, guys. It's clearly planned. We all know. And as any good wrestling fan can tell you, eventually you need that final showdown between two big rivals, right? And we're getting near the end for one of these guys, so it has to happen eventually. I'm going to have Denver winning in 5 games over the 76ers. I think the Sixers get in as about the 5 or 6 seed. They make a run. I think they lose Paul George during that run, which is what makes it so easy for Denver. I think Embiid controls Joker just enough that Jamal Murray ends up winning your MVP. Give me Denver over the Sixers.
Oh my God, that's honestly brilliant.
All right, thank you so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Mongo is no longer on the show. We'll be looking for a new co-host.
Go New York Liberty! Go New York! Go New York! Go!
Oh,
New
by
York
the way,
Liberty,
Sabrina
baby.
Ionescu 1 for 19 while winning the title. That's impressive. Even more impressive than John Stark's 2 for 18.
But I wasn't actually wrapping up the episode. I was just busting chops. Hey, if in your heart of heart actually believe that, good for you. I have zero confidence in the. I could easily see Denver going to the finals. That I can see. I have zero confidence in the 76ers advancing to the NBA finals with the way this roster is currently constructed.
I mean, other than injuries is one of the most wild statements I've ever said in the 3 years we've been doing this. But injuries have to happen, right?
Yes.
At this point, Boston has the hangover, right? All you need to have the hangover is be the team that won the last year, right? Boston already checks its box on its problem, right? And New York, their big question is cohesion, right? They already made their trade, so they already have their problem, right? So even though the Sixers could potentially have the worst of the three problems in hangover versus cohesion versus injuries, we're making an assumption with them, whereas the other two, we're giving them a free pass when they already have their problem. So I don't necessarily see why it's that, crazy to go with the one that, doesn't at least have their problem yet.
My argument against what you're saying is this. Paul George is new to this team. We don't know his cohesion either with this team.
Mm-hmm.
He might not. If your argument is the Knicks, we don't know about the cohesion for them, you can make the same argument for the 76ers. That's all I'm going to say. Injuries are going to be problems for the Knicks as well, right? The Knicks have Mitchell Robinson, who's never able to stay healthy,
out until this January,
right? OG has been having injury problems his whole career as well. The Knicks are taking a big gamble in hopes that he's able to stay healthy the whole season. Yes, they have a good depth in their bench with one player, Josh Hart, and that's about. I mean, not that the other guys aren't good, but Josh Hart fills so many positions for them. So I understand what you're saying with that, but also at the same time, the cohesion can be an issue for the Sixers as well. Is all I'm saying.
Philadelphia, way more total All-Star appearances than the Knicks, way more guys who have been to the All-Star game, guys who know way more how to play with other guys naturally. So if you're going to just you can't put cohesion equally for both of them in that case. The Sixers have guys
my
who
point is you don't know the cohesion for either of the teams. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but you know that the guys on Philly have more experience of just coming together with guys they've never played before and play with them. They've done it in All-Star games more often. They've done it in the Olympics more often. They have more guys who have done
lost
it
in the
before.
second round.
They have more veterans who have played with other teams on their bench. It's not apples to apples in that case. It's two different types of cohesion where you have many reasons to believe the Sixer veterans can put it together faster than the Knicks would. And listen, I told you last week, give me the Atlantic over the field. I think I don't believe in the other two conferences in the East at all. So if I'm wrong, I think one of you three are right in terms of the Eastern, champion. And honestly, if you could promise me right now, Paul George and Embiid, I might even take them over Denver. So it's not like your picks are crazy. I'm just saying to write mine off when the other two teams have just as glaring of issues that don't necessarily, have to manifest as right. We're just manifesting injuries. Oh, Joel Embiid's going to miss 32 games this year. Just lock it up. We don't necessarily know that.
Yeah, it might only be 28.
Right, but again, I don't know. I think that I don't know how outside of Embiid and Paul George. I'm sorry. Did I? I'm not. I honestly didn't know. Did the point guard, I'm blanking his name. Maxey. He's made he's an all-star, or you just all of the all-stars are just those two players. I'm not trying to be mean. I genuinely have no idea. I do 100% agree that they have more all-star appearances than the New York Knicks, but that's because Brunson has is relatively unknown. Bridges was no one liked that guy. Like half the Knicks roster was outcast.
Half the Knicks roster was picked up from the scrap heap.
Right. So I totally believe that. My question is genuinely, is it just two guys or is it?
The Celtics have 5 former All-Stars who combine for 16 total All-Star appearances. The Bucks have 4 former All-Stars who combine for 20 former All-Star appearances. The Sixers have Embiid, Lowry, Drummond, Maxey, and George. And before you write off Drummond, look at his stats when he was a spot starter for the Bulls. And they combine for an East-leading 25 All-Star appearances. Okay, Don't tell me this isn't a team who doesn't know what they're doing.
So this is going to be like the 2004
I genuinely
Lakers
forgot
that
Lowry
and no cohesion.
I genuinely forgot that Lowry and Drummond were on that team. That I was not trying to. I was actually asking a question legitimately. Stop trying to make this something that it wasn't. I asked a question,
and I'm giving you an answer.
No, you gave a hostile answer.
You asked a hostile question. This whole question is out of order. Oh, see what I did there?
You know what?
I like it.
What? This is why we can't have nice things.
Go Liberty.
Yes, go
1
Liberty.
for 19.
Congratulations, New York, on winning a championship. It's the first New York championship since the Giants.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
Giants.
If you count,
we're going way back to 2012, my friends.
It's been a rough decade,
You mean
man.
the New Jersey Giants?
They beat the New England Patriots when most other teams couldn't.
This is fair.
That's fair. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment down below who you have in the NBA Finals, who you have winning the NBA Finals, and who you have as your Finals MVP. Catch
Why
you guys.
are they all San Antonio Spurs?
See you guys later.
Love y'all.